ladies and gentlemen? It is I, Emily Sophia, here to break down for you guys the latest episode of True Detective. We are on Season 2, Episode 6, Church in Ruins, and spoiler alert, before I dive into the mad thick of things, as I shall be bearing all in this review. And without further ado, let's get right down to that. So, oh my goodness. See, my innate natural response to an episode that completely and utterly overwhelms me is either to cry or to laugh, which I think are two very core basic human responses. And I sit here laughing because I am feeling such a spectrum and array of emotions that I don't really know how to process right now. In fact, I am attempting to process them here in front of a camera with all of you. So we'll see how effective that actually turns out in the end. But man, has this season been outdoing itself. I know that we have gotten off to a rather rocky and unexpected start. And a lot of people have been extremely critical of this second season. And I myself have been in that boat at times and kind of feeling the temptation to compare to the way that I felt about and responded to the previous season and yada yada yada. You know what? I'm done with that business. I'm done because I am enjoying the crap out of the season right now. I apologize if that's not your experience. Actually, I don't have anything to apologize for, so I take that back. But feel free to feel how you want and know that I shall feel how I want. And that's gonna be the way of it. And we're gonna love each other and be kind human beings regardless. But you know, I was trying to think of how exactly I wanted to break this episode down because I know that a complaint that a lot of people have had is that the overarching plot is incredibly complex and convoluted, which it is, but it is supposed to be by design, and I am kind of a conceptual big picture thinker. I can work in the details. I can play around in that stuff, you know. I was an English major. I like to pick the crap out of literature and look for patterns and details and, well, again, things that speak to a greater common idea. That's something I like to do. And so I've gotten to the point where it's like, I'm not going to attempt to sink my teeth into each and every little convolution and discovery, and because ultimately what we're leading up to is that all of these things, all of the plot things are going to combine into a great Bermuda Triangle of corruption. I mean, everything from the political structure, law enforcement, land development, and then the missing persons case that Annie has been working on, and all of this essentially, all of this craziness from the party in the woods to the torture cabin to missing and funds, just it all boils down into one pot, or shall I say a cauldron the size of California. That's pretty much all that I'm really going to say as far as what the core conspiracy is, because it is everything. It is so ridiculously pervasive, and I think that for all of you mystery machines out there who are breaking this stuff down and who are picking up those clues and who are putting up the pictures on your cork board and taking your strings and connecting the dots, bravo. And that is not sarcasm, because it's pretty confusing. even for my brain, for as much energy as I am trying to devote to understand what's going on, it's a little chaotic at times. Especially since we're working from 4 different characters' perspectives, and they are surrounded by their own characters and their own concerns and pieces of puzzles they're trying to put together. But just look at it this way. Look at it through the lens of it all being connected, and wait to see how it pans out. That is kind of the way of it for me. I think I'm going to do a lot of retrospective analysis when this season is done, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay because there are so many raw, intense performances from this episode alone to deal with, from flashbacks to revelations. I mean, there's just a lot to enjoy and explore, and I'm so digging the writing much more at this point than I was previously, so I'm gonna deal with that stuff. That's kind of the way I feel, so I apologize if you were coming here like, Emily, solve the mystery for me, who done what and when and where and how and why. You're not gonna find that here. What you will find is my emotional word vomiting. I'm gonna do my best to make that as palatable as possible for your ears and brain. So we're gonna do it. Anyways, my favorite aspects of the episode. So the way that the party scene was dealt with was just, it was so incredibly well done. I really enjoyed that. Even from what I've already seen, at the point that I'm filming this, nobody has any reviews posted. It's either like shitty recaps or, hey, tell us what you thought in the comments. We're gonna have a review up later. But a lot of people were talking about the Stanley Kubrick film Eyes Wide Shut, which was, I believe, his last film before his death. If you guys do recall what that one is about, it's essentially about this man and his wife who, the man, upon discovering that his wife had contemplated an affair, goes off into a land of sexual ridiculousness with a secret society and orgies and craziness. So that was something that a lot of people are talking about and connecting to this episode. I even had one of my followers at least brought this to my attention, and I totally agree that there was a very John Wick style feel to the way that Annie Bizzarides was infiltrating the party. And of course, even though her sister is trying to tell her, like, dude, you're not going to be able to bring anything in there. No blades, no nothing. Like, she's trying to get her sister ready for this experience that she is going to have while she's working on her knife skills. You know, doing a little blade dancing. And Annie remains completely unfazed. You know, she knows that she has the tools she needs to endure and survive, and yet when she is actually thrust into that environment, still proving capable of finding her way out of that labyrinthian horror house. I mean, man, was that so nightmarishly and beautifully constructed. So of course, as soon as Annie is in the venue, she is forced to take drugs along with all the other girls there who are being made to relax and to please all of these rich and powerful men who have come together to, well, have a great big old circle jerk in a number of ways. But like, so having to see all of this from Annie's perspective was so heartbreaking and so intense. The musical score was so different from anything else that we have had in previous episodes and gave it such a Hitchcockian and noirish sort of feel to it. It definitely horror, definitely felt like that entire sequence is being portrayed as a horror. But so as she is drugged up and attempting to stay on top of her game and to do what she needs to do, find what she needs to find, etc., etc., while of course Paul is trying to infiltrate the scene and, you know, find the evidence that the state attorney has them looking for and all of the everything else that's going on. But when she has that moment when she first encounters the orgy upstairs, where she sees the face of a man who is not actually there, but is a figure from her past, which was very briefly alluded to earlier on in the season. But if I am not mistaken, I mean, do correct me or let me know if you think differently, but I think that in her drug-induced state, in being surrounded by all of the sexual happenings, and how exploitive and terrifying it feels to be completely walled in by this like the depravity that she sees. So she glimpses this man, and then we're given an opportunity to see like she disappears from the mansion and is in fact in what looks to be a countryside, and is entering this this van with a guy who's talking about the unicorn in the woods, and just, oh my gosh, like my chest was ripped open at that point, because I think it was very clear what they were trying to portray in that instance. I think that's really the first very dreamlike sequence we've had since Ray Velcoro's near-death experience, and the whole some say love and the bar and the, you know, David Lynch stuff that we got earlier. And it was, man, just such a brutal glimpse into the things that Annie has been trying to run from, and just we see her dedication to her work, the sacrifices that she has to make, the ways in which she has been taken advantage of and ultimately overcomes in very violent fashion, even managing to find Vera, I believe her name was, the missing girl from back in the first freaking episode. So a lot of things are coming full circle / reaching a fever pitch, which makes this an incredibly exciting point in the season. And either you're in or you're out, really. From what I'm seeing, all the haters are either the ones who have been showing up every week to say this sucks, or on the other hand, you've got the people that are like, wow, this keeps getting better and better. If you don't fall in either of those two camps, totally cool. But I am definitely sensing myself in the latter of, I'm finally starting to pick up what this show is putting down in a big way. And so, yeah, there's a lot of personal devastation that we are witnessing in the midst of this case becoming bigger and crazier than it's ever been. I'll talk about Ray Velcoro in a minute, but we see some interesting stuff too with Frank, who is attempting to track down the hard drive so he can get his land deal and yada yada yada, attempting to get himself up and around after the Ben Casper incident that set this whole business into motion for him in the first place. And then ultimately, so he's trying to find Irina, I believe her name is, who was pawning stuff at Ben Casper's place, and who should have some pretty big answers for him as far as what happened to his money and where he's gonna go next, you know. And unfortunately, things don't play out quite the way that he expects, and he endeavors to make his way through quite a complicated situation when he infiltrates the house that belongs to two of his potential partners from back in the bar, who he turned down. Whoopsie daisy. So he's trying to strike a deal to get in touch with this girl who has more answers about Ben Casper. And they seem to make like, yeah, we can make this happen. Do the 3 nights a week. Keep what you make. Moving stuff through the clubs. First year. I mean, it all seems to be pretty reasonable stuff on the surface, of course, until Frank begins to acquire information from this girl who reveals that, whoops, she's been working with the cops. So instead of relaying any kind of message or intel to Frank, she, in fact, becomes a message that is sent by, well, Frank's new partners. So, just when you think that he is on the up and up and he is busting into things, getting his little duckies in a row, well, some new eggs are hatching in the hen house. I know that we're talking about ducks and hens, but whatever. Birds and stuff. I'm trying to work with my nonsensical metaphors here. Whatever. Take them or leave them. But yeah, so Frankie Frank is going to be having some issues very, very soon here. And that, of course, does bring me to the standoff that we had at the very beginning of the episode with Frank and Ray, as Ray, of course, reveals that he was set up by Frank, although technically Frank wasn't necessarily trying to screw him over, but that it was a very interesting conversation at the beginning. I mean, I wanted to just make a transcript of it so I could analyze each line, because I think that contains my favorite dialogue from Frank so far. Even more so than when he was recounting his traumatic experience in the basement as a child and looking at the water spot on his ceiling and all that stuff. Like, for all the weirdness that has come from Frank throughout the past few episodes, his worldview kind of culminates in a very interesting way in this scene as he's trying to talk Ray down. We got 2 men at the table, 2 cups of coffee, only 2 hands on the table. Between the 2 of them, as they both have the right hands under the table with bullets ready to fire. So what Frank ends up telling Ray, of course, is that he didn't make Ray do anything by giving him that man, that low life that he had killed, thinking that he was getting justice for his wife, but rather that was just a moment that unlocked who Ray truly was. This is actually something that Frank says to Stan's son when Frank and his wife are visiting the wife and son of the guy who was found dead earlier in the season, and he's talking about how these emotional pivot points and these bad things can make you a better person. And what he's saying about the kid is that he's got a heart of gold. Conversely, what he is saying about Ray, of course, is that he has a heart of not gold. A darker variety of a vital organ in the chest. And that essentially what occurred was just a release of what Ray had in him that entire time. And yet, what Frank says to try to diffuse that is like, you know, sure, that's the kind of stuff that may keep you out of heaven, but if I would have done the same thing. Like, if it is, then why would I want to be there? You know, he's the kind of guy who wants to get justice. That's arguably sort of the broader arc of what he's been pursuing this entire season, is, you know, not just trying to figure out what happened to all of that money and what happened to all of his schemes, but, you know, to get justice against this wrong that has been done to him and that has hampered him from his success and goals and ambitions, if that makes any sense. I don't know. I feel like kind of a haphazard magician, just pulling stuff out of a hat. Eventually I'll get the little white rabbit, but in the meantime, who knows what's gonna come out of the hat. But yeah, I think that was a very interesting scene and certainly could have gone down much differently, you know? I suspected that they were somehow both going to walk away from this in particular. I don't know who all is necessarily gonna make it out of the season alive, but I had a feeling that for as tense and as close of a call as it would be for both of them, you know, ultimately what ends up unfolding between them is, well, as Frank does, they work out a deal to where if Ray can get further into the Ben Casper case to help him acquire the hard drive, etc., then he'll see about helping him out in his situation. As far as figuring out who got Frank the name that was given to Ray, as Ray is trying to work all of this back to the source and figure out what the crap to do with the shambles of his life, essentially. In the meantime, I'm gonna switch territory over to Ray now. He does actually pay a visit to the alleged true rapist in prison. And oh man, that was one of several scenes in the episode that gave me some major chills. As with the whole, like, you know me, you just didn't know you knew me, and all the stuff. And very dark threats pouring forth from the black heart of Ray. But really powerful stuff. And it's another echo of this struggle that Ray has been facing in his life with trying to sense his identity as a father. He's now trying to sense his identity as one who can get justice. And yet this guy is saying, oh, I've got a memory thing, I need a lawyer, I don't really remember, I don't know who you are, etc., etc. And this is one instance in which Ray will not let that pass. No, he is going to get precisely what he came for. And he delivers his own form of a death sentence, essentially, where if the guy doesn't get life, either he's gonna kill him in a very terrible way, or probably still gonna kill him. So, it's a toss of a coin, really. But man, did Colin Farrell knock that one out of the park as he's discussing the body parts that shall be removed and the way it's all gonna go down. And this guy is either attempting to play dumb or any number of things, whether the guy is truly crazy or not. Ray is no longer blindfolded and playing pin the tail on the donkey. He knows, and this bullet is meant precisely for that man on the other side of the glass. And this is the only means by which Ray knows himself. This is the only thing that's keeping him alive, and it's killing him inside. This, the fact that his ability to be a father was taken away from him by someone else who quite possibly made his wife become, well, okay, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Hopefully you know where I was going with that. But a lot of it, I think, does come down to that sense of stolen fatherhood. Just like we see this sense of stolen childhood in Annie as she goes into the trenches at the mansion party, and attempts to weave her way through the horrors of the orgy around her, how that transports her to a moment where her agency was impeded and where she felt powerless. So this is an area in which Ray, in his walk of life, feels incredibly powerless, and so he's gonna fight back like nobody's business, and we see that in a huge way in this episode. And ultimately, later on, he has his visitation with his son, and good God, was that ridiculously sad, having to witness him attempting to bond with his son in front of a foreign party. So already this is being taken away from him, and he's trying to find a meaningful way to connect with his son in a way that perhaps they were able to in the past, and now his son's interests even have completely diverged. His worldview is in no way seems to overlap with that of his true father. And so the only thing that Ray can really do is just say, remember who you are, remember who I am, no matter what. We're always going to be this core unit. Even if you want to watch Friends and eat pizza and can't fully comprehend what's going on around you, it all ties into that very integral sense of identity for Ray. So then later on, he explodes, reacting to everything that he has tried to repress over the course of this hellish day. Goes a little coke crazy, gets a little drunk, destroys a little bit of most of his house, and then finally concedes and realizes, you know what? The dream is over. Like, I know who I am. I know who I have tried to be for my son, but I think he realizes that he's almost kind of trying to prolong this fantasy in the end, which he physically and literally breaks with the shattered model planes and just all these broken memories of his son and who he thought his son could be and what their life together could be like. He sees that, you know, I don't want to be present watching this boy slip away, watching myself get pushed further and further and further away. And so it's that fight until the last freaking second, till the straw breaks. And so all that he asks is that he gets the opportunity to be called father. And that is it. Realizing that, okay, if my presence is unwanted, if it's toxic, if whatever this is, it's not what it was meant to be. But some things can't be truly fixed in this life the way we see fit. Sometimes redemption doesn't shape up the way that we desire, and sometimes the best way to move forward is to move on. Sorry for all those little fortune cookies I just opened up on you, but it's big stuff and I really feel it inside, and so these are my thoughts on the matter. We don't get a lot of insight into what's going on with Paul, although I think that is going to be coming later on down the road, but man, was this an episode about sacrifice in a huge way. Incredible high notes with the infiltration of the mansion. We're going to see the fallout of all of that. Apparently the plans with all the signatures and what's really going on in the bigwig's hot house. And gosh, I am all out of time, but I want to talk to you guys in the comments. So please leave your thoughts there. We have so much more to discuss, from the crazy, like, eyes wide shut John Wickness of all. I mean, what were you thinking in the mansion scene? Because I was thinking a great many things and feeling a great many things and clasping my face for the majority of the time. I was afraid that it was gonna go flying off of me. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this review. Do you agree that this was one of the best episodes yet? I mean, after the whole, the shootout sequence that we got a couple of episodes back, I feel like the mansion scene was in so many ways on par with that instance. So much to break down about Annie's experience and that the warfare that she faces as an individual, as a woman, as every piece of who she is, and just, oh, man, I am digging this, and I hope you are too, and if not, we can talk some more. It's okay. All right, y'all. So I'll be back for the penultimate episode next week. And as always, I will be back before you know it.